I'm Beth. I am a clinical psychologist and a yoga instructor, and this is my series of mindfulness-based short meditation videos. So today I'm again using a book for inspiration, and the book that I'm using today, it's actually an older one from Sylvia Boorstein. This one, I will link to it below. And so the book is It's Easier Than You Think, and the subtitle is The Buddhist Way to Happiness. For those not familiar with Buddhism, one of the major tenets of most forms of Buddhism is the idea of mindfulness, and in particular, mindfulness meditation. So that's what we'll add to our practice today. I'm going to read a little bit, just a paragraph from a chapter that Boorstein writes on what she calls managing gracefully. I thought that this was a really good metaphor or good information to use for the current pandemic crisis that we're all going through right now. And I think you'll see why after I do the reading. So I'll read a little bit, we'll spend a little time reflecting, and then we'll sum things up at the end. So she said that one of the things that made her interested and inspired in writing this book was when she went to a gathering of American Buddhist meditation teachers. And she said as they went around the room, the question posed to everyone was, how are things with you? And so here's what she said. She said, as I listened to all of us speaking in turn, I was struck by one particular thing. As people spoke, they said things like, I'm pretty content, or I'm doing all right, or I'm pretty happy. And yet we all told regular stories. People had regular lives with regular sturm and drang. People had relationship problems, problems with aging parents, someone's child had a very serious illness, someone else was dealing with a difficult kind of loss. And yet everyone said a variation of, I'm pretty much all right, or I'm pretty content. And it didn't mean that they weren't struggling with what was happening to them. It did not mean that they had transcended their stories and that they were fine because they felt no pain from them. They were struggling, and often in quite a lot of pain and concern. But still, they were all right. I thought to myself as I looked around, maybe we're all doing is we're managing gracefully, or what we're all doing is managing gracefully. So this really fits with the meditation I offered last week on see that you're basically all right, or you're basically all right right now. That's the idea. It's that even when things are difficult, you may well be struggling and you can still be basically all right. So those two things are not in conflict with each other, that we can be struggling and we can be basically all right. So that's where we're going to spend a little bit of time reflecting on. I will also link to the prior meditation that I did related to this below, so you might want to consider watching that one either before or after this one. So find a comfortable seat for yourself. Take a few moments to sit in a way that is alert and upright, and yet comfortable. And of course you can lie down as long as you can still remain alert for these next few minutes. As you start to tune into your breath, your body, start to tune into this moment. And then you may call to mind some of the difficulties that you are faced with right now. Maybe those are challenges related to the world situation, the pandemic, challenges to working remotely, or being cut off from others in your life. Maybe you're facing some difficulties or challenges that are unrelated. Just because there's a major global crisis going on doesn't mean that we all still don't have our own stuff. Perhaps you're struggling in your relationship. Perhaps you have financial concerns brought up by the crisis or not. Take a few moments to think about how are you managing gracefully? And by gracefully is the idea that perhaps you're doing the best you can. Perhaps you're hitting a wall in some areas, and yet in others, maybe you've made some progress. You're hanging in there. What ways can you not only see that you're basically all right, but give yourself credit for being basically all right? When didn't you fall apart? When did you hold it together when things were really challenging? Or even if you fell apart, how did you pick yourself back up again? How did you manage the falling apart gracefully? How did you get through? As long as we're here, we got through. Whatever the most difficult thing is that we've faced up until now, we've gotten through. Maybe awkwardly. Awkwardness can have a certain grace as well. And if you lose track of that idea of managing gracefully, you find yourself being critical or hard on yourself, come back to your breath. Feel your breath with a sense of caring and compassion. Perhaps you might want to lay a compassionate hand on yourself and remind yourself you're doing what you can with what you have, that you are indeed managing gracefully. So stay with that idea of you're getting through things, you're managing gracefully, you're basically okay and all right. And I'll read you just the last paragraph from this chapter in the book, what Boorstein suggests at the end of that. So she emphasizes managing gracefully is not second rate. She says, I'm pleased to think of myself as managing gracefully. It's a whole lot better than 10 or 20 years ago when I managed tensely or fearfully. Everybody manages in one way or another. Everyone who is alive and reading this book or listening to this video has managed. Managing gracefully or even semi-gracefully is terrific. So in these last few moments of reflection, if as I said the words manage gracefully, you dismissed that, you thought I'm not managing gracefully at all, can you give yourself a bit of credit for managing semi-gracefully, a little bit gracefully? Whatever qualifier word seems right for you or quantifier word, can you give yourself that bit of acknowledgement, that bit of credit, that bit of recognition? You are indeed managing gracefully, as we all are in some way or another, or simply you're managing. So I hope that this meditation today allowed you to find some room for recognizing the ways that you're in fact managing and coping with not only this current difficult situation, but with all the difficult situations in your life, whether it's things that you're going through now or things that you've already managed and dealt with in the past. Thank you for joining me once again. I wish you happiness, health, and safety. Take care.